Welcome to Really Old Movies. I'm your host, Harrison Scullen, and today I have my very special guest, AJ, the awkward actor. And today we'll be discussing Animal Farm from 1954. And so before we get started, why don't you kind of introduce yourself to the audience and then kind of tell us why you picked Animal Farm, because you got to choose the film today.
Yeah. So again, May J, pronouns he, they. And the thing is, if you know me, you know that like animation is a medium that I have a lot of passion for. I also have a lot of passion for xenofiction as well. I just find it so fascinating, the stories that can be told from the animal perspective, because I think it can tell a lot about our own society through the perspective of animals. That's probably why Watership Down, and in this case, Animal Farm, are among some of my favorite literary pieces ever. And so, additionally, I would say that regardless of your opinion on this film, you can't deny that looking into it, there is so much interesting sort of behind the scenes things that you can really look into. And if you're not aware of it, I am so excited to talk about it because there are so many details and story, or at least it's this main sort of overarching, like, how did this happen in the production? Or like it's mind-boggling, like one specific component that in the production. So yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In fact, we could kind of start and talk about that.
Mhm.
I learned studying this that the CIA was heavily involved in production of this
Yes.
film.
Hmm.
That was really,
Yeah.
really interesting to me.
Hmm. And if you want, we can, like, depending on when we talk about it, like if we want to like devote an entire section on the ending of the movie, that way that I feel like that would probably be the ideal place to begin discussing the CIA's involvement.
Absolutely. Yeah. So why don't we go ahead then and get into the plot? And what were your thoughts on it? And would you give it a scale of 1 to 5?
I personally believe that the plot of Animal Farm, I think it's one that, like, it's one of the most perfectly and like briskly moving novellas that I have ever read. And so when you look at the film, you really begin to realize, like, it's it can almost be considered like a page for page adaptation. There are very minute things like Molly the horse and of course the ending,
Right.
and other very small things like that that maybe don't transfer as well, like in translation, that maybe got lost in translation. But it is a like it still very much is sort of like a representation of the book. Like, this is sort of what happened. And with that, when you're working with such strong material like Animal Farm, you're going to have a lot of strong elements with like the powerful allegory and the interesting ways that each of the animals played a part in their demise in the end. And yeah, I mean, I think uh, the issue with the story at times is that there is like when I'm watching the movie, it doesn't quite have that like feel and like that sort of captivation when I'm reading the book, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
I can definitely remember. I am a little bit different because I never really read the book in school. I actually watched the movie because I heard someone recommend it to me because I had watched Watership Down and I was looking for more of sort of movies that are sort of on theme with it, with having that sort of cult following, you know?
Right.
And so I saw it and I was like, that was a really weird movie. And
It
I'm not sure
is.
if I understand. And then my dad was like, it's based off of like a really famous book, and he's an English teacher. So I was like, huh, you know what? Maybe I should give it a read. And I was absolutely hooked when I read the book. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is exactly what I was looking for with this. Like, I still do think that like the movie definitely has some really strong elements. Like, I would have to say that my personal favorite part of the movie was when it's after the chickens have their rebellion and they're brought forth, and Napoleon is asking other people to confess, and then they
Yeah.
basically kill everyone in the back and then like the new command is written with blood, and then as Napoleon and the dogs are leaving, we're hearing the old chant and theme that was sung by the animals in the beginning when they were trying to fight against the totalitarian nature of Mr. Jones. And
Yes.
then Napoleon, feeling so threatened by that, puts it to a halt. And it really like sinks in like, oh shit. We definitely had moments of that like beforehand, but this is really sort of the nail in the coffin. And the way that that scene is portrayed, it's just, it's so good. I love the way that that scene was executed personally.
Oh, absolutely. You study up on this storyline and how it's really based off of what happened in the Soviet Union,
Hmm.
and just how they were changing rules all the time and making the people more afraid, and because they use fear tactics.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so would you say then that the plot was pretty faithful to the book then? And you kind of touched on
Yes,
that,
for the
but
most, yeah, I would say, except for like the last like 5 minutes, but compared to that, like the rest, pretty much the book with a couple of things that got lost in translation.
mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And so would you give that like a 4 out of 5, 3 out of 5? What do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah. Yeah, correct.
All right, awesome. Well, for myself, um, so I actually read the book right before I watched it
Hmm.
because I wanted to have it fresh in my mind.
Nice.
And I gotta say, I hated the ending. It
Yeah.
totally undermines the whole goal and whole purpose of the storyline.
Hmm.
And so because of that, I gave it a 3 out of 5. Not because it was terrible, but just because it kind of derails the whole purpose of the storyline. And
Hmm.
I'm gonna spoil it, but you know what? It's 80 years old, right? But um,
Yeah.
in the book, it kind of ends on a very kind of cryptic, almost depressing tone, where the
Hmm.
pigs, they kind of look starting to look like the humans, so it kind of makes it even worse and
Yeah.
more terrifying, right? But in the
Yeah.
movie, they have this revolution to overthrow it. It's like, no, you missed the whole point of the story.
Yeah. The point of the story is to like have this ambivalent nature to really hone in, like if you're um frick, what's the word? I don't know, it's not submissive. It's if you're passive to like the authority that you live under, if you're passive to like who's in charge, if you're passive to like what the overall say is in whatever community you may live in,
Mhm.
like there will be consequences. So,
Right.
and again, it is sort of like thrown out the window at the very end.
Right.
And and I've actually heard of some stories that there are some teachers who show the whole movie except for the final like 5 minutes,
Right.
which, yeah, would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, it's so disappointing because the imagery, like the way that the book ends is that it explicitly describes that like the animals can't recognize the difference between the farmers and the pigs. And in the animated movie, it's really able to show that because it shows Napoleon's face slowly turning into Mr. Jones, and it's like, oh my
Right.
God, that is just such an amazing way to like transfer what happened to the book. Like that's just chef's kiss, and then they immediately
Yes.
derail it.
Yeah. Oh, and
Yeah.
just too, they're hinting at they're gonna make little changes here and there, right? And that was like the final
Yeah.
straw. Like animals can't act like humans or something like that. I don't remember what the rule was, but one of them was they can't interact and be
Yeah.
like humans.
Hmm.
So it was like the final nail in the coffin, like you said.
Right. So I have heard some people interpret that the ending of the 54 film, it's like, oh yeah, it's just meant to illustrate this endless cycle of revolution that happens, and then we know that the downfall and the end is going to happen again or something like that. I I mean, you're welcome to have your own opinion, but this is the part where I think we should delve into the real reason why that ending was put into place, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah. So again, some people have speculated, oh, the it ended that way because it's an animated movie and they need to put in a happy ending for the good guys. And that's it verges on what the point of it was, but not really. So again, the film was released in 1954. So it was
Mm,
released during the height of the Cold War. Do a Google, go do a Google search.
yeah.
And basically we all know that like Animal Farm is supposed to be this allegory for Stalin and communism and etc. So the CIA managed to be a part of the movie to fund the film for it to be made, and they decided to have a little hand in the production. And again, with the whole allegory about communism and sort of being this allegory for rising up against communism and oppression. So basically, the goal of the CIA with them changing that ending was to have, you see, it's tricky to, okay. It's like, okay, so basically, the point of the animals revolting against the communists at the end of the movie was the CIA having the people oppressed by communism fighting against the evil communists
Mm,
in the Cold War. Therefore, with that small change, they turn Animal Farm into an allegory, into propaganda. So and basically like when the movie's objective like is to be a propaganda piece for with the film with the goal of it being to be a propaganda piece due to the influence of the CIA and considering that the Cold War isn't happening anymore, it
mm.
almost creates like this really prevalent dated um component to it because like not everybody, I have a feeling that most people when they see the movie not having any idea about like the CIA's involvement, they'll just be like, huh, that was kind of weird, and not really understand that there's actually this far bigger sort of element that kind of dates the movie in a way.
Yeah. No, yeah,
So
that's interesting.
mhm. Yeah, and again it shows like how much there was like this strong like anti, it shows that like how much there was this extremely prevalent like disdain for communism back then, that like they would go out to, that the CIA would reach out to some random British animated like feature production and saying, hey, we want you to do this because we hate communism. So, you know, yeah, but it is very interesting to discuss. So,
Yeah. It's so random too, though. Like you were mentioning, it's a British animated studio, like a
hmm,
really small one too, right?
yeah,
Like it wasn't
like,
even a major one.
yeah,
It's just so weird that they did that. But like you said, it makes sense because of propaganda and all that. Kind of like a lot of those alien invasion movies back then were definitely communist Red Scare and whatnot. So it's
hmm,
interesting how sometimes there is that kind of influence in entertainment. And
yeah,
it's not a new thing, it's always been going on, like
hmm,
that kind of influence.
hmm.
All right. Well, is there anything else you want to add to the plot, or we can move on to acting?
Yeah, I think we can move on to the acting.
All right. So I know there's only really one voice actor and a
Yes.
couple here and there, but what were your overall thoughts on the voice acting?
Yeah, so I think considering like that all of the animals and humans are voiced by one person being Maurice Denham, I think it's incredibly impressive that each of the voices sound very distinct. With some of them, maybe like you can tell, like, oh, I can kind of tell that that's the same person, but if you didn't know that they were all voiced by one person, like when I saw the movie for the first time, like I had no idea that all of the animals were voiced by the same person. And when I learned that, I was just in utter shock. And it really is able to be a testament to the talent that voice actors really have and the variety that a voice actor is able to have, like that they, the way that they can expand their voice. It's very impressive. So props to Maurice Denham. Yeah, and I think that out of all of the animals, like my personal favorite performance that he provides would have to be Napoleon. I think
Mm,
he just really adds this really oppressive but also really slimy quality to it. And yeah, and he's also able to really put in these touches to really make the animals feel animal like, you know? You can tell that like they're not just people acting like animals. They're like people like they feel like animals, you
Right.
know? Yeah.
Right. I like too that sometimes when the pigs would talk, they'd add pig sound
Yeah.
effects.
Hmm.
So yeah, I totally
Yeah.
agree with what you're saying. That was really cool.
Yeah. I will say that there are like like those rare instances where the line deliveries maybe feel like a miss, but honestly, I don't really care about that so much. Like, and sure, I mean, because the film was released in 1954 and because it was the first film released by this studio, like, sure, I guess they were still trying to like find their uh path with some of the aspects of the voice acting, but like I would yeah, so for me I would give the voice acting a 4.5 out of 5 personally.
Nice. Well, I really liked it as well, but I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5 just because I think he was underutilized.
Mm,
Because rather than having characters talk or anything like that, there was a lot of narration. I hate
mm,
movies that do that. It was just tons of
okay.
narration, and
Hmm.
it really skips through a lot of the book because of that.
Mm.
They sum up whole chapters in like 2 sentences. I didn't
Oh,
like
okay.
that very much.
Hmm. Yeah.
But he was great, like you were saying. I just
Hmm.
wish they used him more. Uh,
Mm.
my favorite one, I have to agree with Napoleon, but I also liked. Oh, what was the old one who died's name?
Old Major. Yes, I have to
Old
agree with
Major.
that.
Yes, he was creepy, but it was great. I really liked
Hmm.
that one too.
Yeah, now whenever like I hear passages from Animal Farm, like yeah, those are the voices that I hear, but especially that's the voice that I connect with Old Major.
Yeah, it was great.
Hmm.
A little cheesy the way he died, not gonna lie, but
I guess, yeah. Especially the way that like it made it No, I agree with you. We can get onto that with the animation eventually,
sure,
but
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
all right, we can move on to the directing. So, what are
Hmm.
your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so directing, like I think considering that this was Britain's first like foray into animation with like animated films, I think what they were able to accomplish here is very impressive. Like Manor Farm is brought to life from the page like very well. Um like the images used for like the commandments on the barn,
Hmm.
like I feel like they're really able to capture sort of the translation in regards to the original book. You can definitely sense like like it's definitely a distinct difference from like it has a very different spirit from the book, but it's able to yeah, it is able to have its own flair with that and its own identity, not necessarily being too attached to the book.
Hmm.
In some ways it's to its detracting nature, but you know um, yeah. Uh, the again, it is only those small things that didn't quite come across through translation and the ending being, but I feel like those things are like with the whole translation process, that's almost always inevitable when you're adapting something like a book.
Yeah.
And with the ending, we can blame the CIA.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I'd give directing 4 out of 5. Again, you can also tell that like they were still trying to like find their treading, like find their footsteps with how they wanted to make this movie and how they wanted to present it. And when if we look to the future of like animated films in Britain, we can see like the leaps and bounds that have been made in
Hmm.
the area. So I think considering that it's Britain's first animated film, it is very impressive what they were able to achieve here. And I'll be able to expound on more things when we talk about the animation.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I agree with a lot of the stuff you said, and maybe I can't pin all of the issues I have with it on the director, but I will because why not, right?
Go ahead.
Um, I still really think the changes to the ending are
Okay.
unforgivable. Totally misses the whole point. And another aspect I didn't like that much was so in the book, the animals, from my understanding, they do talk to the humans, but in this movie, they just hear animal noises. And then another thing I didn't like, so every time they would sing the Beast, I think it's Beast of England, that's their
Yeah.
song. It was just animal noises. It's not the actual lyrics to the song. I was really disappointed with that.
Hmm.
So again, I don't know if we could put that on the studio or the director, but yeah, I don't know. A lot of those changes to me kind of took the whole spirit of the book out.
Okay.
So because of that, I give it a 2.5 out of 5.
Okay. I have my own opinion on the use of Beasts of England, but we can get onto that with the music because we seem to be very scattershot on our opinions.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to animation.
Cool. Yeah, so I would give just right off the bat, I like reiterating what I said about this being Britain's first animated film. Although you can see that the character animation can be a bit stagnant, and the backgrounds, although they are done very well, you can very easily tell that they are painted, meaning that the cell animated characters, you can kind of like obviously see that they're not really meshing very well. But with all of
Yeah.
that being said, I would still say that this is a damn fine effort for Britain's first animated film. I think that the character designs, like that's basically what I associate with the characters now. Like I think that they're very well translated. I especially love the design of Squealer. He has like this sort of like like the way that his like face is drawn even. It's very like squeamish and it's like very in line with the character. Other characters like Boxer are a lot more like bulky. It's like so across the characters, I think that they are designed with a lot of purpose and knowledge of the original source material. Um, so yeah, so with that, I would probably give the animation a 3.5 out of 5. Yeah. Recognizing its limitations, but definitely acknowledging there's a lot of really good stuff that's on display as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well,
Oh
uh,
boy.
well, so giving some context, so this is right around when animation was kind of changing to the more like simple blocky type of animation. I don't remember the name of it. Basically like the you ever see the Pink Panther and there's like the inspector, he's like a single color and all that.
I think I have an idea about what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a more simple geometric style. I'm not a huge
Hmm.
fan of that, and this is
Okay.
this is kind of getting into that style, especially with Jones. I thought Jones looked terrible.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. He looked like Bert from Sesame Street with this big
Okay.
unibrow. Um, and sometimes I liked Boxer. Like sometimes he looked like a real horse, but there were other moments. His hooves were so big, it just made him look
Mhm.
a little ridiculous. I'm not gonna
Okay.
lie. Um, but I will say my favorite ones, and I think they put the most effort in because they were pretty much the leads, were the pigs. I think they
Mm.
were the
Hmm.
best designed ones, especially Napoleon. I kind of
Yeah.
like he has a little bit of a Neapolitan color to him. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, and like we were mentioning, Old Major, he had these big bags under his eyes,
Hmm.
make him look really old.
Yeah.
And then Snowball, he kind of looked not heroic, but he kind of looked a little bit more noble than
Hmm.
uh, Napoleon did. Like Napoleon looked dark and scary and whatnot. So I really like that, but I don't know, everything else I had a really hard time with. And I couldn't help but think, okay, are they trying to make it a more adult kind of scary, or are they trying to do a kids movie? I don't know if they really figured out quite yet. Now it
Yeah.
is
The
yeah.
After you.
Okay. I was just gonna say it is their first go, but I don't know
Hmm.
that there are other studios that did better at the
Yeah.
same
I
time.
mean, even if you look into like advertising for the film, I'm pretty sure I saw a poster of it where it's like, you'll laugh and cry too, or something like that.
Yeah,
And there's also like it does feel like the advertising they were like, even though I think it's kind of clear that Animal Farm is not like a kitty story, but like I would say like I would say like if you're like in middle school, which is when the book is typically written, like that's a
yeah,
good time to like experience Animal Farm, I would say. Um, and so I can understand that. Besides there, like I would say the only sort of bit of like comic relief is that random duck like
oh
from
yeah,
who just hops around. But then again, like they're completely forgotten for the rest of the movie when like Napoleon really gets going with whole oppression and all.
yeah,
But no, I can see that criticism. Yeah.
yeah. I will add though, I did like the dogs too. They look pretty good too.
Yeah, yeah, and the way that they worked with whenever they would like attack in the shadows and you only saw their eyes and their mouths and yeah,
Yeah, no, that
very
was
eerie.
very much so.
Hmm.
But anyways, so to give my score, I give it a 2 out of 5.
Okay.
Ugh.
Whew.
All right, let's move on to music. What are your thoughts on the music?
Okay, so I know we were talking about Beasts of England or whatever, the way that it's used in the movie. Personally, I really like the way that it's incorporated. Me personally.
Hmm.
I think, well, first of all, I think that the orchestrations for the film are really great, but I think they especially stand out for like whenever Beasts of England shows up. Like when we're seeing them burning the whips and the belongings of Mr. Jones, um, even though it's supposed to be this like triumphant moment, there's still this like really eerie quality about it. And that's because of like the incorporation of the animal noises, you know? Um, which like I get it is sort of like a deviation from the original, I get. But I think that considering the interpretation that it does with using the song, I think that it's really, really compelling, at least for me. Um, yeah, I think that the rest of the movie is, sorry, the rest of the music, I think that it kind of like reminds me of like those golden era Disney movies where the music is almost in sync with the motion of the characters,
Hmm.
you know. And you could honestly mistake the movie for being something made by Disney, considering the look of it and the music.
Definitely.
Like, yeah, which I actually remember when I first watched the movie, my brother was walking in and he was like, "What is this like a Disney movie or something?" So, let's see, there was something else that I wanted to bring up. Right, so I noticed that there was this cue that was used for the crow, and it really hints like it's really able to hint like, oh man, something's about to happen because that typically like I know that that happened like when the animals were killed in the back of the barn. I'm pretty sure I was hearing it. Um, okay, I can't remember the other time, but I know that I definitely heard it more than once, and there was like this association that they made with the crow,
Right.
and yeah, I thought that that was it was just a little something that I noticed upon this most recent viewing. So for me, I would give the music a 4.5 out of 5.
Nice.
Okay, are we going to be 5 for 5 with disagreeing?
I think so. I
Oh boy, okay.
I really, really like that song in the book. And I mean, if they just played it one time and then the rest of the animal noises, I guess that would have been fine. I was just so disappointed that they didn't have it. Because
Okay.
to me, it showcases kind of the camaraderie the characters have. And then once Napoleon finally cuts it out, then it's
Hmm.
kind of like, oh man, I guess we don't have that anymore, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. So
Yeah.
again, it's a key element I think that's really missing from the story. Um,
Okay.
I'm a huge fan of the book, if you can't tell, but
Oh
yeah,
yeah, like I love the book as well. Like I think it's like near perfection.
yeah, it's probably I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's up there. But I
Hmm.
digress. The the score was fine too. I agree with that too, but I can't forgive them for what they did here, Red. I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. But and that's okay that we disagree, like not
Yep.
everyone's gonna have the same opinions.
What was your score for it again?
Give it 2 out of 5.
Oof. Okay. 5 for 5, going strong. Okay.
That's all right. So, what's your final letterbox score?
Yeah, so my final letterbox score is a 4 out of 5. I think that this is considering the history to associate with this film, I think that it especially okay. We're as I was mentioning earlier, I think, or was alluding to earlier, I think regardless of your opinion on the film, you can't deny that there's such an interesting story behind it.
Oh,
And I
definitely.
think that, yeah,
Definitely.
so I think because of that, you like it's almost kind of worth seeing to like notice these ways that like the CIA's influence can have on a film where its original point is to not coincide with what the agenda of the CIA was trying to push in this movie, you know? I think it's just interesting to see how something like that can tamper with a story that is so beloved, like Animal Farm, and that is revered for its like this its great allegory and the way that like it can be tampered by outside forces like the CIA.
Right.
And additionally, I think like I know that this is kind of a required viewing for a lot of people who end up reading the book, but I would also say like if you really like the book and you still haven't seen this film, I think you should definitely give it a shot, being aware of the history behind it to maybe just take it with a bit of a grain of salt is what I probably would recommend. But I also think that this is kind of like required viewing for animation nerds like myself because of its historical significance and how it really began Britain's foray into animation. And I think that Britain is such a great area where animated films are brought. Like, so for that, like, yes, I would recommend this to people just because of how much just an interesting story is behind this film. And also for like those other niche communities that would definitely really love to check this out.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, uh, would I recommend
I
this one?
don't. Right.
Right. Right.
Just rip
Well,
it off like a band-aid.
oh gosh. Well, my final letterbox score doing the average was 2.5 out of 5. Now, if you haven't read the book yet, I would say yes, watch it, for animation standpoint, like you were mentioning. And because it will bring interest. So like, oh, I wonder what the book is like. And then you'll read the book and then never watch it again.
Mm.
No, I don't know. To me, I really love the book. I have a hard time with the changes they made. So if you're a
Mm-hmm.
devoted fan of it like me, I don't know how much you'll like it or not. But I guess you really liked it and you liked the book too. So I guess it
Yeah.
it
And like
just
my dad
depends.
who like has read the book like a billion times and has like shown the movie, he said that like he really loves the movie, he just doesn't like the ending. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So your mileage may vary. So
Yeah.
um for myself, I won't really recommend it, but that's okay. I am
It's okay.
excited for the Andy Circus movie. I just heard that.
Yes, I am so excited for that. I am very much looking forward to that. It's going to be interesting because Andy Serkis isn't so well known for his motion capture technology, and I'm really interested to see like how he incorporates it for something like Animal Farm. Because
Yeah,
when you use something that involves computers with like animating animals, especially anthropomorphic animals, it does have the tendency to verge on the uncanny valley. But then again,
definitely.
this is Andy Serkis. If anybody's gonna make a motion capture version of Animal Farm, it's gonna be him. It should be him, especially since he's done adaptations of Planet of the Apes, or at least I know that he wasn't personally involved in the directing or writing of Planet of the Apes, but he definitely had a hand with the performance. He did that like Jungle Book adaptation that I hear is a lot more darker than some of the more mainstream adaptations of the story. So I think that if someone is gonna make an Animal Farm remake using motion capture, it should be him. Definitely a right call for that.
Yeah, I'm really really excited for that
Hmm.
because he's Gollum. He's great as Gollum, but
Yeah,
and also he's done other animals like you were saying with Planet of the Apes. He did
yeah.
King Kong. So I think
Like
he'll.
he's such a yeah.
I was going to say he has a real knack for animal motion, so it'll be really interesting.
Yeah, he's a very talented actor. He's very expressionistic. He is able to really portray this animalistic quality. And yeah, I have a feeling he's probably going to be playing maybe probably at least one character in the movie, most likely.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder who he would
I'm just
play.
saying, Andy Serkis as Napoleon would be really, really awesome. I would love to see that, but I have a feeling they're going to get someone else. But it would be super cool if Andy Serkis was Napoleon.
Yeah, it'd be really awesome actually if he's also Jones, so he like overthrows himself.
Oh, that actually, oh my God, that's genius. Oh my goodness, that actually would be so cool.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
like
Early predictions of what they're gonna do with the, yeah.
right.
Oh,
Who knows when it'll come out? I hope soon because oh, it'd be so good.
hmm.
All right, but anyways, any last thoughts about Animal Farm 1954 before we go?
I think we covered what our thoughts were, so nothing left here.
All right. Well, before we close, why don't you promote your different social medias here, and I'll have links to all of those in the description.
Yeah, so you can find me on YouTube at The Awkward Actor. I don't really post anything on there, but I hope to soon. You can find me on Letterboxd also as The Awkward Actor. And you can also find my music Instagram account where I mainly play guitar, piano, and sing. You can find that at chaotic_music. Uh, yeah.
That's great.
My
All right. Well, thank you so much again, AJ, for coming on today. And
pleasure.
I hope in the future we'll find another animated film to watch and I'll bring you back
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, I'd be down. There's one particular one with anthropomorphic animals that I'm particularly obsessed with, and I think you know which one it is that I would be very down to discuss with you.
Oh, Dumbo, right? No.
Look, the poster
The
is
little
in the
poster right there. Yeah, Watership Down. I actually have a VHS of that, I think, so I might be able to do that.
really, oh my goodness, that's so retro.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Well,
I honestly love that.
yeah. What year did that come out? I only covered the 65.
1978. I know that your deadline is
Okay.
like for movies is like pre 1950 something, right?
65.
Pre 65. Okay. Yeah. So possibly another time when your theme is on point with it. Or just another really great animated film like before then. Either way, I'd be
Yeah.
down.
Yeah. Or better yet, even on your channel, I could come on as well or whatever works. That'd be
Maybe,
fun.
maybe someday.
Thanks again for coming on. And thank you all so much for watching or listening to today's episode. And make sure to subscribe to Really Old Movies on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Letterboxd, the works. That's where I'm at. And new podcast episodes are released Saturdays, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. All right. Well, thank you all so much. This has been Really Old Movies. I'm your host, Harrison Scullin. This is my guest, AJ. Take care.